All right, rock and roll. Welcome one, welcome all to the Scorched Earth. I am your host, John, and if you could kindly hit that like and subscribe button, it means a lot to us. Feel free to drop a comment, friend or foe. We welcome on all. And we also have a new thing going on here this week. And we are one pod, one love. We are getting ready for the election cycle that comes up next year. And we are a team. We are going to be the blue wave. We are going to be the honest retribution, the ethical retribution, the retribution of love, because we are going to defeat these fascist mother effers. I'm telling you that right now. But if you could, and you want me to talk about something on the podcast, feel free to drop it in the comments. I do appreciate that. I do respond to all the comments, and I want this to feel like it is more of our thing, that we are all in this together. I will do my best. If you drop a topic in the comments, I will do my best to bring it to life in a podcast. I'm not saying I'm going to do it well, but I'll do my best. All right, let's get to it. Let's burn it all to the effing ground. And today was another sobering day. We seem to say that a lot. One of the things that is my passion is the gun violence issue in America. Believe me, I caught enough slack for 5 lifetimes over the Charlie Kirk thing. I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to retract anything I said. You mess around, you find out, right? And it gets more and more harrowing because it doesn't seem like anything is happening. And I have had many people tell me, John, just move off it. It's too politically divisive. You're not going to get advertisers. You're not going to get subscribers. You're not going to get anything like that because nobody wants to talk about it. If you look out there in the political environment, in the podcast world, in legacy media, nobody is talking about gun violence. Nobody is. And I'm not saying I talk about it every day. Heck, I don't even know if I talk about it once a week. But I will tell you this. I'm talking about it a lot more than the entire ecosystem of podcasts combined because they know it is radioactive. I don't care. I don't care if I have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 subscribers the rest of my life and I don't make 1 cent. This is a passion. And if I can save one kid in one school from one bullet, I'll do it for the rest of my life. Straight up. This is real. This is what we're about. We're not here to BS you, to try and get your money, to get your fame, to get fame or whatever this aggrandizing narcissistic thing that is this ecosystem. This is honest. This is sincere. But today, in a courtroom, we had this amazing 40-year-old former school teacher, Abigail Zvarner, and she testified about 2 years ago. She was in her classroom teaching, and one of her students came up and shot her. She put her hand up, the bullet went through her hand, deflected into her chest. It's still lodged there. Thankfully, she is alive. But she has testified, and it was riveting today, and it was heartbreaking, because she talked about the trauma she has endured since that shooting. She said, and I'm going to get off on some of these words here, but this is the gist of what it is. She said, I felt like I was dying. She also talked about constant trauma and nightmares she has suffered since that day. She also said that she doesn't ever want to leave her house. She also said she can't open a water bottle or a bag of chips. And I was taken back. This is a 40-year-old mature woman, a brave woman, who is literally scarred for the rest of her life. It is real. Emotional, mental, spiritual trauma is a real thing. Look at all the brave soldiers who came back from wars with PTSD, and the American military discounted them, said, oh, just got to get tougher. No, you have to get real with what life is. And sometimes life inflicts trauma. And this is the sad part. Not everybody recovers from trauma. I hope this beautiful teacher does. But it made me start thinking, and I started doing research because I was intrigued by this. In America this year, we're at the end of October, 207 school shootings so far this year. In 1999, that was the first school shooting that really came on the radar for me. That was at Columbine. And Michael Moore, the documentarian, made an amazing documentary called Bowling for Columbine. Please check it out on YouTube or Netflix or whatever platform it's currently on. And since 1999, since that horrific shooting in Columbine, 390,000 precious children in schools in America have been on campus when there was a school shooting or a mass shooting or whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to play the adjective adverb game. They were there when people got shot. And some other facts that in this country, 12 kids a day under the age of 16 die from gun violence. 24 are wounded. These are real numbers. And I look at this brave teacher, and she's got a lifetime of trauma ahead of her. But now I think, what about the kids? You know, when a school shooting happens, the first thing we think of, how many are dead, how many were wounded? And then we move on to the next one, because as the 207 number indicates, there's going to be another one probably tomorrow. But what do these kids have to deal with emotionally, spiritually, psychologically for the rest of their life? How traumatized are them? And I will tell you a story I read, and I had it validated. Do you remember that horrific Michigan church shooting a couple weeks ago where the gentleman took his truck and barricaded the door and then started shooting it up? It was a Mormon house of worship. When the shooting started, the parents, many of the parents freaked out. They panicked. They didn't know what to do. And the kids literally showed them what to do. Get down, move to the exits, move to the edges, that kind of thing. The kids, because they have been so regimented, traumatized by the fact of what can happen, have actually become this generation's leaders, I guess, in having to deal with it. But also, when these kids are on campus and somebody shoots them and they see blood, they see flesh, how does that affect them the rest of their life? You know, one of the big things that's on that happens on podcast, and I never really made this link until right now, is we talk about the disassociation of the young kids in society, right? We talk about how they don't go out to the mall, they don't go to the movies, they sit there in their room, they're on their phone. And I just thought of this, and maybe this is stupid, maybe this is brilliant, it's probably closer to stupid, but maybe because of the trauma they have to go through, the regiment, the horrors they have to see just to go to school each and every day, school shooting drills. I didn't have to go through them. Now, think about this. If the school puts you through a school shooting drill, what does that make you think about when you go out to a mall or you go to a public place? Do you not carry that with you, especially when you're a young, precious child? You know, we want to sit here and beat up the kids because they, quote unquote, are introvert. They don't want to go outside. Well, what do you expect? We're trying to figure out a way for them to survive. And then you tell them, oh, hey, go live your life like you were in the movie Born Free. Nobody is acknowledging that. And these kids are dealing with trauma that nobody cares about. Go ahead, just make it. You'll make it. You know, it's just mother effers who never have to deal with what these kids think. And I think these kids are warriors and they are brave. All right, let's also talk about Comcast is trying to buy Time Warner Media to form basically one of the biggest news gathering and media outlets in the world. Well, the Trump administration has just been sitting on the sidelines. They have to approve of the merger. And one of the biggest media analysts put out there in the ecosphere, he's a Republican, that maybe the way for this deal to get consummated is to name Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, as the CEO and managing editor of CNN and NBC. Try and restart your heart. Get the defibrillator out. Get the adrenaline shot. Put it in there, just like Pulp Fiction. Let's get the heart started, because when I read that, I was like, oh my God. Now, like many things, you say, oh my God, that can't happen, but then it really effing happens. Let's go back in the time capsule. Paramount and Skydance had an $8 billion merger. It was basically a fait accompli last December. The Biden administration held off on approving it. They were going to give it the rubber stamp because they said, and this is the ethical presidency, Joe Biden, the DOJ, which was actually independent, even though I think Merrick Garland is a fickle idiot. said, we're going to let the Trump administration, because they're going to have to deal with the consequences of this merger for the next 4 years, we'll let them decide. But basically everything had been cleared, investigated, background checks, everything. So it comes, and what happens? They sit on their hands for 8 months. They finally approve, but only after Paramount agreed to pay the Trump administration $16 million for his bogus presidential library. Funny, we got plans for the ballroom supposedly, but we still don't have plans for all these people who put money into this presidential library. Second, that they were able to name, this is the Trump administration, name an editor-in-chief at Paramount. Also, we don't know this officially, but then we also got to get rid of our critic, Stephen Colbert, right? We've got that going on. Also, the final little kick in the teeth was they had to give the Trump administration carte blanche, $20 million in free PSA ads of their choosing for the next 4 years. Wow. Wow. Now, let's go over to this pending merger between Comcast and Time Warner. You sit there and you think, well, how are you going to put Erica Kirk? What's her qualifications? Well, her qualifications are she was in legal studies. She got a degree, a bachelor's in legal studies at Liberty University, which is basically probably less than a paralegal in the real world, but let's give her some breaks. I'm not going to do anything sexist here because that's not her fault. But currently, she is studying for her doctorate in, wait for it, biblical studies. Okay, I have no problem with her studying that, wanting to be devoted to the Bible. You do you, girl. I am down with that. But to run one of the biggest news gathering media corporations in the world, that's like them coming to me and saying, John, we're going to have you run Goldman Sachs. And I'm going to say, well, it's a powerful thing. It's a lot of money. Can I do Scorched Earth in Manhattan? Of course I can. Got to take my producer with me, though. And I thought to myself, well, John, if you're running Goldman Sachs, what would you advise? I would advise anybody who has money in there to sell it, get it out fast, because I am going to topple that company. I have no prerequisite skills. And that is exactly what Erica Kirk is. She has no skills to run that company. But then I think this Republican media outlet, or analyst, maybe he knows something, and maybe this is what the Trump administration is floating in back channels to get Comcast to come out and go, yeah, Rachel Maddow's boss is now going to be Erica Kirk. Think about that. That's like after you get divorced from the ex comes back and they got a gun. It's like, oh my Lord, what do we have going on here? All right. We do stories each and every day, and they get depressing. The victories are far and few between. They're more semi-moral victories, but today I actually put a big effing smile on my face, and that's because Buckingham Palace, King Charles, stepped up to the plate and put his brother, Prince Andrew, the pedophile, the rapist, he took away the title. He took away his home, which was Royal Lodge, and basically said, get the heck out of the family. Now, personally, I wish this guy had to go live in a beat-up Yugo. I wish he was facing criminal charges, like all rapists should be. But that's not going to happen. But I'm going to take the small victory. But let's talk about the other pedophile in the room. That would be the guy at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. This all happened because Prince Andrew was Jeffrey Epstein's little buddy. They went on these little trips. They recruited young women, Ghislaine Maxwell. They used little women and discarded them like day-old newspaper. And I apologize for that. They weren't young women. They were girls. That, I apologize. That is one of the things that I have complained vociferously about in media, that they do call them young women, and I just did it. No, they were girls. They were raped. They were culled. They were prostituted. They were sex enslaved. And Jeffrey Epstein, obviously, was at the center of this. Donald Trump's BFF for over 10 years, and a man so radioactive that Mike Johnson has held the House of Representatives out of session for the last 5 weeks because he does not want the newly elected Congresswoman from Arizona to be sworn in and be the 218th vote that mandates the release of the Epstein files from the DOJ to the general public. They are trying to scrub them. They are trying to sanitize them, but I think they can't figure out a way to do that. Thank goodness for that. And I will tell you this. I wish Prince Andrew was in jail. I wish he was on the street. I wish he was getting his teeth kicked in each and every day. But what I hope for more is that one day, maybe we're going to see Donald Trump in a courtroom, and maybe we're going to see him in jail, and maybe we're going to see him have his day of adjudication. Hopes and prayers. Hopes and prayers, Donnie, because you were in the same party. All right. We also today had a federal judge from Boston actually intervene in this big SNAP dispute that is coming to a head on Saturday, November 1st. And basically what is happening here is SNAP benefits for 42 million hardworking American families are coming to an end. We've talked about this ad nauseum. I hope it's not boring you, but I'm going to go down this road. 42 million people are going to lose SNAP benefits on Saturday. These are Americans. These are people on the wrong side of the poverty line. Well, the judge has said, I am going to go in to the Trump administration and find out what their emergency funds are so that we can continue paying these people in an emergency order. Now, SNAP cost approximately $8 billion a month. The Trump administration, in their court filing today, said that there is only $6 billion in emergency funding available to them. And I'm not going to get into if it's going to happen. We don't know. We're going to see what the judge rules on Friday, maybe Saturday morning. I hope she is able to extract the funds so these families can get the food they desperately need. But the bigger point is the Trump administration claims, and I don't believe him for a second here, that they only have $6 billion. Let's think about some of the things they've spent money on in the last month. Instead of keeping money for SNAP, they have given back Argentina to the point of $40 billion. So we can do the math, right? 8 billion, that would have been 5 months of SNAP benefits that would have been guaranteed to hungry people in America. 42 million people would have got fed for the next 5 months. We all know what the real end game is here. The Republicans just want to starve Americans out. Also, in the last month, the administration spent $172 million on 2 G700 Gulfstream airplanes for Kristi Noem and HHS. They've also spent $50 million on ads in the last month for immigrants to self-deport and to recruit new ICE agents. Why spend the money? Just go straight down to hell and put out a flyer. Because anybody who's joining ICE literally doesn't have a heart and soul. Sorry, I said it, but I said it. All right, let's talk about also, as Donald Trump is winding down his little Asia trip, some of the things that he has gotten officially. Now, we're not talking about the illegal stuff his family is doing, not like the hot mic he was caught on talking to the leader of Indonesia 2 weeks ago where he said, call Eric about that business deal. I'm talking about the things that are in full sight. And the reason this brings it up is because he went to South Korea at the beginning of this Asia trip. I think it was his second stop. And he was given a 28-karat gold crown. And it was gaudy. It was horrible. But that's what South Korea said. Oh, we need to work on friendly relations here. Blah, 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 blah. Here's the gold crown king. Well, funny, this is a heck of a coincidence. The next day, they announced a new trade deal with South Korea, and get this, they significantly lowered the tariffs. All it cost is, a couple $100,000 in gold. You're going to save $100 million in tariffs. Also, as we remember earlier this year, the country of Qatar gave him a $400 million jet. They also gave him a $4.5 billion golf resort that his family would control. We don't know how much equity actually is in there, but let's be honest. We know it's probably pretty significant. What did they get in return? They got an assurance by Donald Trump pledging the full use of the U.S. military to protect the country of Qatar. Wow, what a deal. But as a little bonus, Alex, they also got facilities on a U.S. Air Force base in Idaho. Well, why fight the enemy when you can bring them inside your continental U.S.? Also, let's talk about Vietnam. They gave control of a $1.5 billion golf resort in Vietnam, and their tariffs went from 46% in the new trade agreement. It's 18. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. Even the ducks got to go, man, this is some SHIT, right? Yeah, I know it is, right? There we go. And finally, I just want to thank you all for being part of Scorched Earth. Hit that like and subscribe. Leave some comments. Tell me what you want me to talk about in the podcast, and me and the ducks will take care of it. All right, we'll see you soon on the Scorched Earth Political Podcast.